So wouldn't you know it, Boba Fett was in the Solo movie, and in that end scene totally set up the totally, actually, completely, officially announced Boba Fett movie.
How you get so big into food of this kind?
Alright, so if you clicked on this far, I'm going to assume you saw Solo. I'm not kidding when I say this involves spoilers. In fact, I'm going to be talking about the most spoilerific part of the whole movie. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, please, please, please don't watch. Spoilers start now. So obviously the little thing at the beginning of the video was completely fake. Boba Fett was not in this movie. Instead, the end of the film involved a hologram of Darth Maul who's running a criminal syndicate. And no, that was not a double fake out. That part is the real cameo and is the real spoiler. So if you saw the movie, you might be a little bit confused. Maybe the last time you had heard from the Sith Lord, there was a sale at the mall and everything was half off. So how was he alive? Or maybe you're one of those fans that heard that he did in fact come back in the TV show Star Wars The Clone Wars as a Maul with weird spider legs. Or maybe you're like me and you actually watched Star Wars The Clone Wars and you realized that yes, Darth Maul was still alive. No, he does not keep the spider legs for very long. And in fact, over the course of the series, grew his very own criminal syndicate right under the nose of the Republic and the Sith and almost took over a good portion of the galaxy as an independent third party. Now, if you ever thought to yourself, man, I would love a Star Wars movie about a former fallen Sith Lord that takes over the criminal underworld and almost takes over the galaxy, guess what? It exists. It's a cartoon, and you probably thought you were too cool to watch cartoons. So I'm going to start here with the part you actually care about, which is if you're clicking on this, you might wonder where Maul came from. Like I said, he survived the fall in the Phantom Menace. How? I don't know. How's there sound in space? He survived. He has half of himself that's a robotic body. In Star Wars The Clone Wars, he has a brother. They're not exactly biological brothers. They're more brothers because they're from the same people, the same tribe. They're from a group of individuals known as the Night Brothers that live under the thumb of the Night Sisters. Think Wonder Woman Amazonians, only like super evil. Savage gets sent on a quest to find Darth Maul and bring him back into the fold and out of his craziness. They team up and they want to get revenge on the Sith in general. See, Maul is mad at his master for forsaking him, and Savage had previously been training under Count Dooku and was mad at him. Of course, Count Dooku is Palpatine's new apprentice, so we have this kind of duality of old master with new apprentice, with old apprentice, and new now apprentice, and they have this dynamic and they're trying to fight each other. And the 5th season of Star Wars The Clone Wars, Maul has his endgame. The galaxy is taxed, and not the government kind. No, the armies are spread thin, there's no one to keep control of a lawless galaxy, and Maul just kind of slips in and gets in charge of the Hutts, the Black Sun, the Pikes, all kinds of criminal syndicates, and they all start following him, including the Mandalorian group known as Death Watch. So if you are also familiar with Clone Wars, you will know that the Mandalorians, which is the culture of Boba Fett and Jango Fett, have become a pacifist planet, but not everyone from that planet likes this, and so sometimes they're fighting with each other underneath a militant group known as Death Watch. Maul teams up with Death Watch and takes over the planet Mandalore, which is also conveniently where Obi-Wan's sort of girlfriend lives. You also didn't know Obi-Wan had a pseudo-girlfriend? I mean, you really should be watching this show. That's all I'm gonna say. The story kind of goes from there, and it even gets Darth Sidious out of his Thanos chair, and he goes and he takes care of business. And it's one of the most amazing arcs in the entire series. Now, of course, Clone Wars was canceled due to the Disney buyout. His story in Star Wars The Clone Wars was concluded with a comic known as Son of Dathomir, where Son of Dathomir ends and where Star Wars Rebels picks up, because that's right, Maul is also in Star Wars Rebels, but Star Wars Rebels takes place after Solo, a Star Wars story. Somewhere in the middle of that, Maul becomes in charge of this whole new criminal syndicate known as the Crimson Dawn, and even though he's at the height of his power in Solo Star Wars story, he's going to end up stuck on an old Sith temple in Rebels. So I'm really excited to see exactly how we get from point B to point C. Anyway, that's kind of what's going on with him. But here's where we get to the ranty part of this. I love Solo, a Star Wars story, just for this one scene. I mean, not just for this one scene. I love the movie for so much more, but this movie will always be important to me because of this scene. See, for years, while we've been talking about anthology films, I never dreamed that we would get into super EU stuff. Super expanded universe stuff. And I used to think that Star Wars The Clone Wars was super expanded universe stuff. It's added on. You don't really need to watch it. It's where we go to fill in the holes that the movies don't handle well and just kind of fill out the universe. But what this movie said is, no, the expanded universe is going to be a part of the film universe, not just an add-on. You haven't been watching Star Wars The Clone Wars? Well, I guess you have some homework to do after you watch Solo, A Star Wars Story. As a fan, I felt validated, especially as a fan who's been trying to convince people for years to watch Star Wars The Clone Wars, trying to tell them that it was just as good, if not better, than a lot of the films we've gotten. And Rebels is incredible. I was on the verge of tears watching the final season of Rebels, and I am so excited for Star Wars Resistance to see where that series takes us, and I'm excited for Jon Favreau's live-action show. I'm excited for all of it, and I can't wait to get into all of it. I know a lot of people have had a hard time with this new canon, and now that the new canon is getting into and addressing stuff from Star Wars Rebels and Star Wars The Clone Wars, maybe it feels even less accessible to you. And the only thing I can say to that is I'm sorry, but this is where Star Wars is going. This is the direction. It's not an army of social justice warriors, and it's not just a cash cow rolling down a hill. It's a new generation and a new way of defining and looking at what Star Wars is, and it's not just movies. So you have a set of choices here. You can decide that this is enough and you're done, and you can't handle Star Wars like this, and you know what? That's all right. I've been there, believe it or not. The first thing I loved was Jurassic Park. I was a little 3-year-old trying to watch Jurassic Park, and anytime I got to a scary part, I'd run and hide behind the couch, but I would still watch it anyway. At 3 years old, I wanted to be a paleontologist. All I wanted to be in life was Dr. Grant, because I thought he was the coolest person in the world. And I grew up, and I realized that being a paleontologist is a lot of writing research papers and a lot of college for not a lot of money, and I was like, screw that. I'm gonna do something fun for not a lot of money, which is what I'm doing now, which is something completely different. But anyway, that meant so much to me, that franchise. And I don't like Jurassic World. I'm probably not going to go watch Fallen Kingdom. Like, the direction that that franchise has gone has completely left me, and I have zero interest in it. I also have no hatred for it. If you like Jurassic World, if you like where the franchise is going, great. I'm so glad it still means something to you. I'll sit back, I'll watch the original 3 movies that I love and adore and defined my younger years. It's literally fine. I have such an intense indifference when I see a Fallen Kingdom trailer, and it's not sad for me. It's just a new time. So I believe it or not, I get it. I get what it feels like when a franchise that defines you leaves you. But it's okay, because the things that defined you are the things that already happened, not the things that are coming forward. But what I'd like to do is encourage you to give it a shot. I know the first season of Star Wars The Clone Wars is rough. I know Snips and R2 and Sky Guy are hard to hear, but the series matured out of that. If it hadn't have started there, it wouldn't have had the impact of where it was going. The cheesiness, the corniness, and the kiddiness was actually really important for where the series ended, and I can't really articulate that without telling you more about the series that you should just go watch. Rebels was the same way. It was kind of hard for me to get into Rebels in the first season, but the season 1 finale was so incredible, and the season 2 finale is the best Star Wars I have ever watched. Maybe even over any of the 10 films. So yeah, that's what Maul means to me. I feel validated as a person that's been trying to convince people to watch Clone Wars and Rebels for years. I've heard a lot of people say that Solo, A Star Wars Story was a good movie, but it didn't have the emotion for them that the other Star Wars films. Solo did for me, and maybe not through most of the film, but when Darth Maul showed up, I couldn't breathe. I was so excited. I mean, it was as intense as watching that Vader scene from Rogue One for me. If you're still watching, please follow us on Twitter at Porthaven Forums and visit port-haven.com for more, and check out forums.port-haven.com where we have all sorts of discussion going. And until next time, keep it real and fly casual.
Cooking can be fun.